Okay, just going live from the current location just to discuss a few topics of conversation. And we're using a device here that we read damaged. So either this was intercepted from the manufacturer and someone put some sort of they used our intellectual property that they stole, some sort of artificial intelligence that grossly distorts my physical appearance. Some topics to discuss how this has created problems. We briefly quick review how this grossly distorted. I do not look like this. So this is not what a person who has extremely fair skin and blonde hair, this is not how they would look, even if they put on self tanner or went if they even attempted to go to a tanning salon or tanning booth. I don't even know what pigment. Some people just don't get tan. Um, my hair, I've been mutilated. I've been physically mutilated, so my hair color is not the right color. Um, and my body, as far as my body composition, not been able to get exact measurements. One second, because I'm not able to see an accurate reflection, picture, image of myself anywhere. Is this okay? Okay. Um, Certain people, the perpetrators, the stalkers, the campaigners, the lobbyers, are associated with many different organizations, agencies that are part of what seems to be hypothetically determined to be in a category of parallel economy, which means that there's no accreditation standard, there's no taxes, either a really gross oversimplification for an analogy is cash only, no checking, no credit card, just cash only. Don't want to be bothered with the fees. You have to have a certain amount of money. You have to be earning as a storefront a certain amount of money to even make sense of justifying the rationale for accepting credit card or debit card payments. Um, so there are people that move to this terrace. They're very bizarre, and they're here for whatever their recreational activities are. They're not welcome. They're not invited. I am only here as often as I have been here, but that does not change the formality and legitimacy and legality of who I am. The way that I'm forced here is try to force me to be a homeless hostage. Although being a physician, a lawyer, an architect, an engineer, et cetera, not limited to, I don't want these strangers having my information. They're all eavesdropping and being really disrespectful 24/7. They never approach me directly. They're cowardly. Let's just get that straight. Um, Whether they're drug addicts or they have a psychological problem, whatever the nature, the origin of the problem, they're dysfunctional. And they have had many opportunities to approach me in a functional way that determines the concept of maintaining a boundary, and they're just not capable because they choose not to be capable, or something's wrong and they don't have the ability to function in a way where they don't present a risk of harm to themselves or to others. So when I was able to sleep over near the window over there to create the illusion of being separate from the rest of the populace that chooses to venture here, they choose to be nomadic. They choose not to prioritize permanent residential housing. They're older. They're like near their 70s, which is not in this day and age. Some people would say, if say hypothetically speaking, someone lives until they're like 200 years old, then what's 70 years old, right? So I don't support ageism, but as far as nearing what would be a standard retirement age, they have not aspired to have a very comfortable life. They consider being outside through all the elements of climate, precipitation, which is in the climate category topic of conversation. They consider this to be an acceptable standard of living and prognosis. So we're not disrespectful, me, my family, my husband, my family. We don't make assumptions about people. We don't stalk people. We don't become obsessed with strangers. So this is all a very new situation for me to be in here by myself, but I've been forced here to people. So I'm not treating anyone. So whatever is different about my biological matter, whether it's feces or urine or saliva, is not for any stranger. And whatever these people do, I don't know, so I have no idea. Bettina, Ryan Bandoy's ex-partner, I don't know anything about her. As far as Frankie and Jesse Lamont and who their biological dad is or isn't, there might be some sort of discrepancy. This seems that someone tried to put me in Jesse's place, Jesse Lamont, who would have known Ryan. Whether or not Bettina is a terrorist and if there's something wrong with her, like she has no regard, she, he, I don't know how she identifies. I don't know what that individual's pronouns are. I've never been contacted directly. So there's a resentment and a contempt and a hostility and an injury that's beyond just, this is beyond the hypothetical of I have goals of a stranger, an individual that's a stranger, understanding perspective of what they do and don't have in life, meaning they've decided they want to earn a salary of six figures or over $100,000 or just $45,000, and they're struggling to get to that goal for whatever reason, and they have the cognition to understand, the capacity cognitively to understand that their efforts equate to the timeline in which they accomplish the goal or set a new goal, meaning most people in this day and age could probably find a job that pays them at least $45,000 at minimum wage. If that's correct. I mean, I don't have fact-based information available to me right now, but my understanding is that poverty line is around $12,000, but most people near minimum wage can still other gross pay, they could still make over $20,000 a year, closer to $30,000 a year. As far as whether they rent, buy, there's so many, there's FHA loans for housing. If they're immigrants or they're not immigrants, or if they're, whatever the situation is, there's usually resources, even if they have credit card debt. So I don't understand that, to be very honest. Whatever Bettina, I don't. So as far as whether or not this place is realistically an option, like this evening, as I had mentioned a few minutes ago, when I could sleep around the corner here, there's an alcove, there's a window right there. That's a and this extends to that corner, and then there's like we would call like a bay window, but it's a complete rectangle, and it's set back, a foot or 2 feet, not more than a yard, give or take, and is just enough space to kind of stash and stack what I have with me and rest. And that had been okay when it didn't smell like urine and cigarettes, and has only been in the past 4 weeks since I have not slept over here or rested over here that place, that little spot has been trashed, despite the rate and frequency of people that used to sit in that window. Apparently the window was broken. They'd had some rolling office chairs. There were a few men that used to sit by that window every night. So the timeline is the other topic that's an issue. So there's a couple down that way, like across the little side street. I don't know them. They apparently have been associated with this parish allegedly through whatever their services have been, or just attending liturgy since the 1980s, hypothetically. Um, and they just appeared however many weeks ago. There was a couple down there, if it's okay to mention their first names, Terry and Kevin, and they've moved, they've evolved, their circumstance has evolved in a way that I guess they were hoping to accomplish a certain kind of accommodation, and that seemed to, that task was completed, but they never told me that someone else was trying to get me to leave that spot. They were approaching me abruptly, a group of people that go to the meal program, and I don't know why, other than now there's this other couple that like are older, but they're trendy and they're relevant, and I don't want to make assumptions. This is like very quickly becoming a very hostile place, and there needs to be some sort of escalation and chain of command. There's another couple that may have gone to engineering and science high school, and I don't even know I don't even know who they do or they don't know, if that's the best way to say that. But that was the first round of something's going on, and that was Terry that had mentioned that to me, that apparently the lady was very upset. She thought I had stolen a blanket, which I did not. And I don't even know how, maybe she confused me for somebody else. But now with that couple down on the other side, I don't know if that's who the problem is. And I don't know if nobody really likes those people. I don't know. But initially, I wasn't certain if that was one of my brother's dads. And there had been some sort of event, and someone's not telling the truth. And Francesca Cupo mentioned that hypothetically, and I don't know how I have this information, they're a part of some sort of mob, and they'll mention the biopsy story whenever they're trying to orchestrate something. So there's not actually anything wrong or anything like that. That's like their go-to story. I don't know what they're talking about, but apparently, allegedly, they use that information when they're trying to accomplish a certain kind of task. So I don't know anything about that. I don't even know if that was a skit seller from a series of events that people only try to cause. Well, if it's not my priority, and because of the shock value of crime, the orchestration of white collar and blue collar crime, and how rampant this is, and how I would say what's most shocking to me is how quickly people play victim. And most people are taught not to rely on that as a skill set for managing challenges in life and coping. But there are so many people that play victim all the time, and that works for them. People actually think they're credible, and they believe them. Like any person can call the cops, for example, right? But for someone that's not credentialed to be on a board as a guest representative and gets violent and raises their voice, is also homeless or pretends to be homeless, and then is so quick to call the cops, it doesn't have an employee identification number. How did this individual get access to the church? Like, that's one example. Then you got the biopsy story. Like, there's so many people that, how do you even think they're credible? I don't understand. And they endanger my life. So that lady was saying something, and I don't know who she was talking about, that the newer to me, but apparently they've been to this area since the 1980s, was saying something about someone sleeping on a bench, and that was suspicious. So they are not guardians. I don't know them. There's no authorization. There's no consent. that might be one of my brother's dads, but that might be the one dad out of the entire biological dad group that is not viable because of his choices. That woman that is with him may be the stepmom that got close with Francesca Cupo, and they were in some, I mean, I suppose the category hypothetically would be human trafficking and drug trafficking and the pornography industry. So I don't know if they're polyamorous or what the situation is, but that hypothetically, I don't have any evidence other than how I have this information. I don't know James Keogh, Zach Coons. I don't know about Terrence McLean, Mike Rockwood, these people that went to undergrad with Matthew Tiedekin, who is one of my brothers, had concerns of should this woman, they were so horrible to Matt. And this was before even the bringing to mention that Matt and Frankie, I wasn't sure if it was Matt and Jesse or Matt and Frankie, had basically had an instantaneous like love of life situation and experience with each other, and Francesca hypothetically drugged Frankie and then pretended to be her. And so like this is very bad, and that may have been because of the stepmom. So those former teammates and classmates from undergrad with Matt, if I'm not volunteering them, and I'm not even saying, I don't know how I have this information, but they would have to be contacted if they're available. They may not even want to discuss the topic. Maybe they don't even remember. Maybe I was wrongly informed. Maybe I'm not recalling the correct names. I'm not volunteering anyone. I just have to document. So Matt may have been at one of the events. All of those men that I mentioned may have been at one of the events, which means there's a brother, a nephew, or a cousin. If that's the right way to say that. Is that correct? That they wouldn't have any recollection of. So as far as my anatomy and physiology and my body composition and what makes me extremely rare and unique, I don't want to discuss that. That's private information, and we're not afraid to discuss the reality of who I am and what makes me who I am. But the commitment to harm is ongoing no matter what. And the people that are orchestrating these attacks, they're all campaigning for a similar reason and against each other. They're campaigning, they're lobbying, and they're actually recruiting and implementing, and they've got some sort of affiliation or association with, I would say, if there was actually a mob, an Irish mob or an Italian mob, I would be under the impression that I would wonder that we were in good standing. I couldn't even imagine there being a problem. Is that, I mean, that's not how our family functions. We always work to remain, I'm not volunteering anyone. I'm saying my understanding is that we work to remain progressive, whether it's a cartel, a mob, or a gang. We never ever, people that are really, truly, legitimately in those kinds of organizations usually are not, my understanding, I could be wrong, they usually don't get involved in this kind of stuff unless someone is a big problem and like they're unorthodoxly sentenced. Is that the right way to say that? So I'm not in that category. And so that for me is a major concern. If let's just say hypothetically, those organizations exist, what is going on? Because my husband and my dads have to take precedence, but we don't get in the way. As far as custodian and stuff like that, that's a very different topic of conversation. And I don't know if those organizations exist, I don't know hypothetically where they're at with understanding data census bureau collection and the hypotheticals of fifth generation warfare and World War II never ending, and how they make sense of their stock or their lot in life, why they have made the choices that they've made. Are they affluent? They're not affluent? I don't know. I would think that they're affluent. So I'm trying to understand with the cloning, the bot accounts, this still somehow, I would almost wonder, this shouldn't be possible. So I'm really trying to understand like what's going on. So there was a Tuesday night dinner here last week. They tried to poison me again. This can't keep happening. As far as we want, if okay to mention, we want to make sure that the correct lab values for all of the people that have been attacked are obtained. But there should be enough specimen, if that's the right way to say that. There's no need. We can't, this should never even, I'm sure that we can find ways to ensure that we get the lab values, right? So this shouldn't involve anything happening to me. So these ear pods are not the bud part of the pod is too big for my ear canal. And we had noticed that, and that's why we didn't use this size bud on the so I don't really want to, I want to be able to rest here. I want this to be somehow some sort of convenience to provide the predictability and consistency of this, of what's optimal right now in this kind of ever evolving situation and circumstance. I don't know. I'm not certain that there's any other topic to discuss right now other than we don't shy away from clarification or verification. No one's approaching me. So as far as being here by myself and what inferential reasoning skill sets are, and kind of, so many people are so quick to make assumptions instead of just listening to my concerns. And because this has been as bad as this has been for however long, I still remain accountable for myself, but I wasn't really certain what was going on. So like initially when I would see a cigarette butt, I would wonder, is that one of my brothers? Like, does he know that the one dad that's not viable and the stepmom are still a problem? Is, because normally I'm not seeing that often, right? Like I don't think that I don't associate that to anything, but because that couple showed up, they're showing up for a reason, and I would not ever even guess that that had anything to do with me, but because there's been a change, right? So whenever I go to rest, I have to put on the flashlight if it's like this, and I have to see if the spot's clean. So there's where I would normally go, I always usually go to the same spot. There's been a change. There's been cigarette butts there. There's been, people that smoke a cigar or something like that and clip off the end of the cigar. So I don't know, but I have to be aware, right? As far as like if there's a smog cloud or if there's a stickiness or something like that, then I have to find somewhere else to rest because I don't have access to our cash, right, our money right now to be able to constantly keep stuff clean, have cleaning supplies, the appropriate waste management. If there's a biohealth hazard or biological warfare, like this is a really bad situation. So noticing that, I wasn't really certain as far as an odds ratio, right? Seeing that there's people that are smoking, I can't be around the secondhand smoke. So if there's a cigarette butt, we have to know if there's a lingering odor, which we extensively were trying to gauge what was going on near that window. And unfortunately, it's just not as fresh for an outdoor spot that people might sit at, like a bench on occasion. And because of the timeline that I had known to be here, even though that may not be as long, right? There was still a long amount of time where there were no problems here. And then right before that newer couple became visible, I'd say like a week or so, there were problems erupting. So there was a older person sitting on the bench over there who would just like stand right near me, claimed to have, you know, some sort of impairment, although was maybe just not being nice. Something was shifting over here, and I don't know what that was about. But I'm a landowner, so I'm the landowner, and we have people that are elected as government officials and all of that. So nobody's gonna like be coming over here trying to act like I'm their slave and they're owed money for something that they're not even involved or included in. As far as the property near Woodland Avenue, that's our issue. Like, we can't have people trying to use our land to make money. So if we don't support trafficking or the sex worker industry ever. So you can't do that on our land. So you can't like come over here and try to act like I'm a disruption when I'm not. Paresthesia and proprioception are completely different topics of conversation. Rhinoids is a completely, that's not the word. Is that the right? Completely different topic. Not that, there's a different